everybody, this is Benny Lewis here, and I'm going to be addressing mental health in today's talk. It's an important issue and one that I want to help reduce the stigma of being able to talk about, and it also directly impacts our ability to learn languages. So let me dive right on in, and hopefully I will help anybody who has been facing their own personal struggles lately. So if you don't know of me, I do a lot of stuff online related to language learning. May be known from my language learning philosophy of Speak from Day One. Maybe you might have seen some of my talks or some of my YouTube videos. You could have read one of my published books. Maybe you saw my blog, very big blog. A lot of readers come across me that way. Or you may just have known of me in general, and I think for the longest time I would have been very rightly so known as a very outgoing, extroverted, happy-go-lucky person, and I consider myself very lucky. I've been very lucky in my life, and a lot of things have gone very, very well for me. But unfortunately, I've run into a few rough years, and dealing with those rough years is what I want to address today, and I want to help anybody else who's gone through difficult times. So I won't dwell on what's happened very much, but just to give you a summary so you know that I'm qualified to talk about this, although I'm not a mental health professional. I'm just speaking from my own experience today. Effectively, this is one of the several things that have happened to me. I've gone through a divorce, so you can imagine that that has taken its toll on me. It's been emotionally draining, and effectively this is one of the points here that heartbreak has kind of been one of four major things that have worn me down over recent years. The other one is debt. Let me remove myself here. Yeah. So I moved to New York City a few years ago, and I didn't plan that out financially very well, so I got into a lot of debt. I also had an expensive wedding, and I've made other bad financial decisions. Fortunately, I've been recovering from all things that I'm going to be talking about today. I won't be addressing debt specifically, but you can catch my YouTube channel. I'll be talking about all of these in a lot more detail. I've also suffered from very serious burnout, the worst burnout of my entire life, by writing the language hacking books. There were 4 I wrote at the same time, and these were academic standard books, so they had to be very, very high quality, and it was more work than I ever imagined it would be. So for a year and a half, I was working double time. I was only getting 2 or 3 hours sleep a night on many, many days. So when it ended, I kind of had much lower energy as a result for quite a long time. And unfortunately, these 3 and other issues kind of all came together, and I got diagnosed by a professional as having clinical depression. I had to take medication, which I'm fortunately was able to get off. But these are 4 things, the 4 major things that have kind of slowed me down and taken a bit of my life energy away from me. So this is kind of the background that I'm coming from. But the good news is, if I had to kind of graph a few things over the last few years, it would look something like this, where, you know, things are going very well. They reach the peak, and then the heartbreak and depression and debt and all that dragged me down. And I was in a low state for a while. But in this year specifically, over the last 12 months, I've finally been able to improve on a lot of things. And this graph essentially represents my happiness, my life satisfaction, my net worth as well. And like I said, I've been recovering from the debt. But even more relevant to this particular conference, I would say it represents my language learning story, because up until things started to take a turn for me, I was very actively learning languages and publishing things online about that. And I started writing the books around this point, and things really took a turn downwards. And for several years, even though language learning is what I'm all about, it's kind of what my work is, what I'm passionate about, for several years I was not actively learning languages. But fortunately, using a combination of the techniques that I'm going to dive into, that's been able to change. And this year, I'm doing a lot better. So this here shows you a typical week. I've printed out these little stickers, and I managed to have a language lesson on these days and genuine study time. And this for me would have actually been impossible 2 years ago. I wouldn't have been able to get this level of focus or enthusiasm to get into my languages during this period that I was kind of lost my polyglot edge, as it were. So what's kind of what I'm mostly getting to here is that your learning ability is kind of stacked up. And if you're going through a difficult time in your life, that's going to affect your energy levels and your ability to focus, how easily distracted you are, whether you're passionate about the topic or even interested in it. And of course, it's going to affect your self-confidence. And this is going to feed back into you potentially not doing the task of learning the languages or whatever it is that, because obviously this talk applies to a lot of different things that could be improved in your life if you're going through your own tough time. So yeah, I've got 18 quick tips that I wanted to give. None of these are going to cure the likes of depression or heartbreak or tough times that you're going through. You don't want to think of it in terms of getting like solving the problem, but it's more coping with it and becoming better suited to your situation and hopefully getting back to yourself again. So the first thing I want to really, really emphasize here is that it is okay to not be okay. You're not alone, and there are lots of other people who are going through tough times, especially this year. In 2020, a lot of people are out of work. People are suffering from depression from the lack of human contact. And the few things you might see online, maybe you see couples who are on Instagram showing how well they're supporting one another or something like that. And it can really get to you and make you feel guilty and like, you know, other people have it so much easier than me. And I think for me personally, one of the things that slowed down my ability to recover from all of the difficult times I went through was actually not allowing myself to recover and just feeling guilty for feeling depressed and kicking myself and thinking, you know, you need to get over this quickly. And what's truly helped me to turn things around, like that graph going upwards that I showed you, was accepting that this is a difficult period in my life and that's okay. It's okay for me to have a day where I don't get anything done. It's okay for me to feel a little blue. It's okay that if I'm trying to get on a better diet and I slip off it, I should not like absolutely destroy my self-confidence already as it has been. So this has been one of the biggest lessons that I've taken away. And I would really recommend other people who are going through hard times to remind themselves it's okay to not be okay. I'm not even 100% there yet, like you saw on the graph. I'm getting back upwards, but I'm feeling a lot more like myself, and it's in part because of this. So everything else that I'm talking about today, it's not about curing anything, and you have to have a certain amount of acceptance for your situation to be able to get through it. So I also want to normalize these issues and say that, you know, if you're going through hard times, just remembering that people like me are going through hard times. And as I've opened up to this and been okay with talking to other people about my own personal struggles, I've heard from others and it's helped me to relate to their situation and to feel better about my own. And on top of that, there's a certain toxic positivity, and that's the best way I can describe it, of kind of forcing people to try to feel better. And it can involve quite a lot of guilt, that you feel down and someone is like, oh, it's so easy, just pick yourself up and stop feeling bad about that, depending on who you talk to. And this toxic positivity kind of forces that you have to be expressing happiness all the time. I think it's a good thing to strive towards, to be happier, but if it's shown as some form of failure, if you're not there right now, that's toxic. So accept it's okay to not be okay. All right. So the next thing is actually from this graph is a scan from this book here, Atomic Habits. It's written by a friend of mine, James Clear. And just by the title, Atomic Habits, you can kind of get into the concept of you obviously want to improve things in your life. And I think this contrasts with what people would most associate me from. I mean, I've done a lot of things over the years, but obviously my blog and the title Fluent in 3 Months can, it implies an intensive period of improving quickly. And this is something I really have prided in myself in being a big part of my personality. But I've had to accept in recent years that I'm not going to make that kind of progress in things. And I'm actually working towards getting back to that 3-month process, maybe about a year from now, where I will be having intensive 3-month language projects. But until then, it's actually better to be thinking not necessarily so high up, and just to be looking on a day-to-day basis. You just want to be 1% better. 1% better is way more achievable. It's way easier to envision. And this graph kind of shows you that if you are 1% better every day, then after a year, you're actually almost 40 times better than what you started off with. It's very hard to apply mathematical improvements to things like happiness and feeling of self-worth and so on. But this graph really emphasizes that if you are just trying to, like, it can be so easy to try to find an overnight solution that you will feel better about everything within a few days, or, you know, there's one solution to your problem that'll change everything. You'll feel a billion times better. But ultimately, the most sustainable thing is to find something that you can improve small aspects of your life gradually over time. And I've truly embraced this. It doesn't mean I've ditched my previous mentality, but I recognize that right now I don't have the mental energy to do things intensively, and that's okay, like I said in the previous point, and that's something I'm going to strive towards. But until then, this philosophy of improving gradually every day has worked out a lot better for me. So don't set yourself too high objectives, and feel pride in those little improvements, because they do add up. This is an exponential improvement here, you can see. Okay. So the next thing I would recommend, that you would see this mentioned in quite a lot of literature on mental health, and that's gratitude or writing a journal. And the main thing here is that if you're feeling down, then we can tend towards a lot of self-absorption and like obsessing over the negative. And it's very easy to get caught in this feedback loop of thinking to yourself, you know, my life sucks, everything is terrible because, and list all the reasons. And obviously, in a year like this, our mind can very quickly go to list those reasons why life sucks. And if you get obsessed with that, then that's going to prevent you from being able to get on top of things. Yes, life can be difficult, but the trick is to try to make progress despite that. So if you try a little bit of gratitude journaling, this is very simply just at the end of the day or at the start of the day, you write down a few things that you are grateful for. It sounds very simple and new agey almost, but there's a lot of scientific evidence to back this up, that this can truly benefit our mental health, and that you very simply change your focus a little bit. And, you know, if you're watching this, I know you're lucky enough to be able to afford some form of technology, and that, you know, you are aware of the polyglot community, which in itself is a lucky find. That I know for many people, their lives have been improved just by finding others they have things in common with. And that maybe your health, even if you have health issues, certain aspects of your health are things to be grateful for. There are many things, and it's just a case of reminding yourself of those things each day and changing your focus to be there, and that'll prevent the self-absorption in the negative, which can really spiral out of control. And this also accounts for that 1% improvement each day that hopefully you'd be able to strive towards. And then one of the oldest forms of self-care in history is meditation. And meditation is kind of connected to practicing mindfulness. And I won't get into mindfulness too much, but effectively it's just giving attention and recognizing just the situation that you're currently in, and thinking about it, and like letting your mind kind of be a little empty rather than constantly getting distracted by things. So distraction is a big issue that you'll face when you lose focus. But one thing that I've done every day is I use a meditation app. The one I use is Headspace. There's plenty of other ones. And as it happens, they happen to have their commentary in multiple languages. So I can listen to my Headspace prompts in German, Spanish, and French, and so on. But every day, I have a part of my house, a specific chair that I call my meditation station. And I go to that chair, and it's just 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes of following the prompts in the app and trying to think along the lines of what it's getting me to think of, and trying to clear my mind. And it really does help me to get set up for the day to come. And like I said, I'm on my own journey of self-healing right now, trying to get back to the place I previously was. And this is one of those tools that has definitely helped me. So I would highly recommend you consider exploring some form of meditation. You don't need to go into the mountains somewhere and find a guru and sit in this pose. I can't sit in this pose right now, but you don't need to do all of that. It's really just you can find prompts, you can find this stuff for free, and it really does help to have that kind of guidance. So then one of the more difficult things this year especially is social connection. And a lot of research has shown that social isolation will literally cause your brain to shrink. And we are social animals, we need these social interactions. But of course, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so it's a lot harder to have those interactions. But there are ways that you can still account for this and to try to avoid isolation. Obviously, I've just gone through a divorce and I live alone, so isolation is something I've faced a lot in the since I split up, and especially this year during the pandemic. But I try to compensate for that. I regularly call my friends. I do not wait for them to call me. That's a very tricky thing to get into, that you can start to create these narratives that they don't care about you. I put that aside and I just decide I'm going to be the one to reach out. Other people are going through difficult times right now, so I'm not going to put all the burden on their shoulders. And I reach out to my friends. Sometimes they get back to me, sometimes they don't. I just presume other people have their own lives that they're dealing with. But it's great when I get in touch with someone and we have a nice long chat, whether that be a call or a video chat. And then I might invite them to play an online game with me. And this starts to feel a lot like the face-to-face socializing. And it starts to satisfy a lot of these needs that we have. And there's a million ways you can do this. You can do Zoom happy hours if you happen to drink. You can have a group study session, so maybe you can coordinate with other language learners and simply have the Zoom call active with the camera on you studying. And that gives a certain feeling like you're almost in a library with the other people. And then if you're lucky enough that you do have people that you can connect with who are close to you, maybe find if you're able to bring at least one or two people into your bubble that you accept that these are the people I'm going to have interactions with during the pandemic, and you trust that they are not taking risks, and then you can spend time with people as well. Obviously that depends on the level of risk you're willing to take during this pandemic, but what I've done is I have 6 people that I'm willing to meet up with that are my exceptions to the pandemic, and this way I get these social interactions while not taking too many risks. And it's really made a world of difference, because when I isolated myself, that's when I was in my darkest places. So I'd highly recommend this. The next thing, of course, they say laughter is the best medicine. So try to find materials that can bring that kind of joy to your life, whether that be a funny movie that you really like, and get recommendations for other funny things that fit your style of humor. Stand-up comedy is always a good one. It actually literally releases endorphins and decreases stress hormones. And this is the kind of thing that adds up over time. And in terms of language learning, I've taken this into my learning approach, and I actually have been improving my French, for instance, specifically through stand-up comedy in French. And I have a teacher who helps me with that stand-up comedy. And actually, that reminds me that on this previous slide of the social connection, one thing that has helped me a lot this year has been my language lessons, because these are daily sessions. I'm reaching out to a native speaker and I'm trying to connect with them and have conversations with them. And if I have a decent enough level in the language to, of course, have more complex conversations, and they really bring the same feeling of social interaction back for me. So yeah, that's laughing can help a lot. And then, of course, you probably would have heard this a million times, but many studies have shown that physical activity is the best way to fight depression. There are many things that you can do, but it's actually when you are physically active, the neurotransmitters that like dopamine and serotonin, these actually have increased levels in your brain. And these are the same things that antidepressant medicine targets. I know because I was on it. And you can get exactly the same effect of taking antidepressant pill by simply going for whatever form of exercise you happen to prefer. So whether that be running or hiking or yoga, and you can do this, of course, inspired by online YouTube videos and such. I've been getting dance lessons through like the same thing. You could just put up a YouTube video and just follow whatever the instructor's doing. I really like dancing. It just makes me feel happy. And I don't necessarily have to do that with like in a cramped nightclub or something. Just that activity of moving my body. And of course, being physically in better shape is obviously better. And I'm working on that myself. It's a slow process because I'm trying to get back to a healthier place. But in general, whenever I work out, I always have better energy levels. It helps me get into better sleeping patterns, and I do feel this burst of energy, and I feel more enthusiastic about the things that I want to do that day. So of course, I can highly recommend you try to find the time to get physically active every single day. Another one is just very simply treating yourself, and like if you happen to enjoy massages, that can be a good one. It's obviously very difficult nowadays. I found a masseuse here close to where I live who seems to take quite a lot of precautions around the pandemic, so I'm comfortable going to them just once a month. And then other ways you can treat yourself to things like that is just taking a bath and having nice bubble bath stuff around it, or whatever you find is good for relaxing. One thing that I did for a long time was I didn't let myself do something like play a video game or watch a movie because I felt so guilty that I wasn't getting a lot of work done. And it's good to reward yourself with these things after a certain amount of time, but sometimes you just need to make sure you're also at least giving yourself a minimum amount of good self-care, and to schedule the time. Like I said, once a month I get like a deep tissue massage that just makes a world of difference. I feel so much better afterwards. And if you have something along those lines that you enjoy, then treat yourself. Obviously within reason. Some things are more affordable than others, and you can find something that really just helps you to relax. Don't deny yourself of too many of these things. Another one, it's kind of weird to say this, but something like changing your bed sheets. When I was really, really in my worst state, I just simply didn't change my bed sheets. And there's something strange about putting a fresh set of bed sheets down and feeling that as you get into bed. And it's so weird. It just really makes a difference. But in general, making sure you have a clear space in like your desk that you work at, and in general where you live, to try to tidy it. Set aside time each week to clean things up, because some people do this automatically, and I'm very impressed by them. And hopefully you don't need to hear this, but I personally did need this advice to take some time to make sure that I'm not in a cluttered space the whole time, and that I'm cleaning where I live, because the clutter and the dirt and all of this, it just added to me feeling dirty inside and not feeling like a whole person. So something like this, it's very simple, but it really does make a difference. And then when I was recovering, especially from something like heartbreak, or if you've lost somebody through death, for instance, there's a lot of major life events, losing a job, and so many other things that I heard the phrase, it takes time to recover from, and that really is true. And the reasoning for this that I liked the most when I was looking into this is very simply that you have certain neural pathways. So in my case, I split from somebody I thought I was going to be with for the rest of my life. And it was very, very difficult for me. And for the first period of time, little things, like I would get into a car and expect to like hold their hand next to me. And that's because in my brain, these pathways had been kind of burnt into there, that whenever I'm in a car, I'm holding the hand that I'm not holding the steering wheel with for a certain time. And I just needed the time and, of course, the experiences, and the more experiences, because it doesn't just take time, it takes life experiences to replace those neural pathways. And that really, truly helped me. Like that example, just by taking a few trips in a car, I wasn't feeling that sudden pound in my chest like I'm used to doing this thing. Now I don't feel like that anymore. Or certain songs would come on the radio and I just needed to hear those songs a few times, and now it doesn't affect me as much. So the reasoning for that at least that helps me think of it, is those neural pathways that you just need to be exposed to things again and to improve upon them. But of course it helps with new experiences, and to not be in your head too much about things, thinking negatively about things, but to try to embrace a new style and new things in your life. But in general, it does take time, but I can tell you from proof, I mean, I hope you see the stuff I've been through, that I've had my down periods, but it's taken some time, and now I'm feeling so much better. And then to make sure to talk to somebody, and this is different to what I said before, the social interactions. I mean that sometimes you might want to actually reach out to a professional. And especially, like I said, I'm not a mental health professional. If you do feel like you're going through true clinical depression, then find somebody. And even if they're booked out for the next month, you can absolutely have a Zoom call with a therapist, and you just book it for a month from now if you have to. And like, I know part of going through difficult periods in your life is that even the little things like making a reservation for or an appointment with a doctor can feel like these insurmountable mountains that you need to pass through. But just try to make these little things, and it's okay if you book it a month from now, because that time will eventually get here. And by seeking out professional help, I do feel so much better. And I'm very glad I did that, because I'm an Irish guy with a degree in engineering and some language learning experience. I was not equipped to deal with the mental health issues that I came across. So getting somebody else to guide me through those was immensely helpful. Here in America, there's a little bit more of a use of medication to help with that, and that's a very controversial subject. But if your professional advises that to you, then you should just go through with what they said. I got medication, and then I was able to, with my therapist's help, to get off that medication again, so that now I can feel good without it. But I am glad that I was on it. It helped me through the absolute darkest periods, and this was because a professional guided me. So I highly recommend you look into that if you're going through tough times yourself. The next one is a little weird, but sunlight, it really makes a huge difference, because nowadays a lot of us can work from home. We don't really need to go outside, and we don't have a lot of opportunities to go outside if a lot of events are cancelled and such. But unless you're in very specific kind of lockdown, you can absolutely go outside. And like the vitamin D that's produced in your body from exposure to ultraviolet light does help your immune system, of course, which is kind of important nowadays, and things like your muscle health. And as well as that, your circadian rhythm is kept in check, because one of the toughest parts of a difficult period in life is that you're going to have your sleep schedule. Well, it's not one of the toughest parts. One aspect is that your sleep is going to be disrupted. You're either going to be sleeping in quite a lot, or you're going to be getting less sleep than you should be. And circadian rhythm being tied to that can mean that just 10 minutes of actual sunlight, which is very different to artificial light, it's much brighter and it affects your brain in a very different way. This just resets your circadian rhythm and reminds your body to regulate your hormones in a different way, and it affects your sleep, and that's just so important. And all of these little things, like I said, I have a list of 18 that I'm going through right now. These all add up in incremental ways to help you feel that boost of energy that you may be lacking nowadays. And as I mentioned, sleep can be so important. So other things that can affect your sleep, especially in this day and age, is technology. So I actually have a rule that I am not allowed to use technology in my bedroom. I don't have my phone charger in the bedroom. Literally just the alarm clock is all that I have in there. So you should not be looking at any screens, whether that be your phone or your computer, for a full hour before bed. Definitely don't take it into your bed. Your bed should be used just for sleep and sex, nothing else. And if you want to use technology, use it up to that 1 hour before bed. Maybe see if they have these blue light filter settings on them. That does make a difference. That kind of ties back into that circadian rhythm that I was referring to. But in general, you don't want to have exposure to technology too late, because your brain is kind of getting reset and it sees all this light and it's all this mental stimulation. Try to do something away from screens for that hour before you go to sleep. And then as well as that, if you fill your day with activities, which I know for somebody who's not feeling a lot of energy, it can be very difficult. I know I've been very guilty myself of just kind of melting into my couch and watching TV for hours on end, but try to find activities that challenge you, and this can mean that you feel a little bit more tired when it comes to bedtime. And of course, exercise can make that big difference too. Another important one is anti-ruminative activity. So this essentially means that you're thinking about the past. And when you've gone through difficult times, something like what I've gone through, you can get caught a lot in the, why this happened? What if this happened? And especially this year when we're alone, we ruminate quite a lot on the past and things that could have been. You might think about something embarrassing that happened even 10 years ago, or an awkward exchange you just had with somebody, or somebody that you miss. But what you want to do is you want to be doing activities that engage your brain. And group activities that you can do just as easily online is one way that you can do this. Like I like doing online gaming, for instance. Gaming that involves talking to people through a headset, so I'm interacting in some form with other people. Or you can, by yourself, just focus on your hobbies. Of course, language learning is one that just keeps your brain active and keeps you thinking about something else that isn't, oh man, I'm so sad because of what happened before. I mean, you can't avoid that entirely, but to have activities that, like I said, are anti-ruminative, because they're getting you to engage in something different. And they're exciting enough that they don't really give you time to focus on the past. They're engaging enough to get your mind out of that and to make you maybe even a little tired at the end of the night. I kind of referred to this with the massage, but in general, you want to be kind to yourself with just how you look at your day to day, and you want to honor yourself. We tend to kick ourselves, and my self-respect and self-confidence were down quite a lot during that dip in the curve that I showed. And just by accepting that, I've been through some tough times and it's okay to go easy on myself. And that's something I would highly recommend that people watching this would consider. And on top of that, if you just really think about it and realize that other people are themselves also going through struggles, it's a lot easier to relate to them, and to see that because they're going through tough times, it's okay for you to feel bad about things as well. And we tend to have a filtered view of people, especially without so much direct interactions with them. The likes of going back to Instagram again, you might see like just in just people having these perfect days, and you think, I suck, I'm such an idiot, I can't have a perfect day like them. But that's a filtered view. That's what they're deciding to let you see. And unfortunately, I'm sad to admit this, but I was just as guilty of this as anybody else. Even when I was going through rough times that were leading to me ultimately getting something like a divorce, I would still not necessarily, I wouldn't share any of that, and I would just update a pretty picture of me and her together. And that would give this impression that we're this perfect happy couple. And then other people who were single, who might see that, would think to themselves, oh, they're so lucky, I can never find somebody. And it really inflates this concept that you need to kick yourself when you're down. And I really think that we don't tend to see everything of everybody's situation. And that's a good reminder to be kind to yourself. Give yourself a break. Let yourself have some time off. And then previously, I talked about the gratitude journal. And another reason to do that, other than the immediate effects of trying to get your focus away from the negative, is also that later on you can refer back to that. So if you're having a really difficult day and something has gotten you down, and you're in these negative feedback loops, and you're starting to think, I have nothing good going for me in my life right now. If you refer back to those gratitude journals, you'll see when you had a bit more mental energy to put into it, you'll see a list of all of these things that made you happy, and that can bring you back to feel happy again. So it's another reason to do this. It's great to refer back to them later. One other thing is that during difficult times, it's okay to redefine what success means to you. Previously, for me, I had very high bars for success. I would consider myself successful if a book was suddenly an international bestseller, or I had a YouTube video with 1 million views, and I'd have these like huge objectives, or of course with languages, that I would reach for a very high goal in 3 months. And for this period in my life, I've changed that a little bit, and I'm accepting a different level of success just while I heal. So for instance, maybe right now, success may very simply be, rather than all those lofty things I mentioned, maybe this week I only ate 1 pizza. It sounds very ridiculous when I say it like that, but ultimately this is a little form of success that I can be proud of when I was finding issues with overeating and getting too many carbs to deal with stress and such. So I take that as a form of success. I feel pride in that, and you try to feel pride in these little things. And ultimately, it's making me get back to feeling like I was before, and getting to a level where I can have more like the success that I was having previously. And I'm only going to get there if I stop kicking myself, and if I embrace just the success that I am having and become more of a positive person again. So I'm relearning this skill, and I'm hoping it makes sense as I'm saying this to you guys. One of the last things that I want to mention is that whenever you've gone through tough times, whenever you're going through tough times, you will eventually be the person you were before. And one thing I've been told consistently is, in the last few months, by my closest friends, they're saying they're starting to see the old Benny again. They're starting to see the me re-emerge from this like cave that I've been trapped in. Because for the longest time, I was not myself. But by embracing a lot of the things I've talked about today, I've been able to be the person I was before, and I can do, like I said, I'm pacing myself. I'm thinking maybe a year from now, I'll start having these crazy objectives again, because I'm going to feel enough energy then to do it. But even now, I am consistently using my languages again. I am feeling more upbeat. I'm feeling positive. I'm feeling able to have these discussions, like to have this one that I'm sharing with you today. And for the longest time, it did not feel like that would be possible. It felt during these many, many dark months that I went through, It felt like I had kind of reached the end of a certain period in my life and things were only going to get worse from here on in. But of course, we can recover from things. So I know that 2020 has been a very tough year for a lot of people, but we're going to recover. The whole world is going to recover, and we're going to get back to places that we were before. Maybe some things will be missing. Like in my personal experience, I'm not going to be exactly the same as before. I'm hopefully going to be a little bit wiser from this experience. And I feel like there are positives I've taken from this. The ability to talk about difficult subjects. I'm definitely embracing that a lot more. And but otherwise, the parts of what makes me truly me, I feel like I'm going to be getting there very soon, and I'm already feeling there. So if you're going through tough times, things that have slowed you down in your ability to do things like focusing on language learning and to feel happy again, and I know it's hard with a lot of stuff happening in the world, but you're going to get through this. You're going to get to the other side. You're going to feel like yourself again. I'm very confident that this is true for so many of you watching this. And I really hope that you found this this helpful. Like I said, this is all been based just on my personal experience. I'm not completely 100% recovered, but I'm definitely very much far along the path of recovery, feeling more like myself again. So this is what I wanted to talk about today. And of course, I'm going to be diving into all of these topics. I'm going to be sharing my own personal ways I dealt with the specific problems I've had over on my YouTube channel. So just type in your browser benny.tube or search Benny Lewis on YouTube, and make sure to subscribe and click the notifications bell so that you'll see as I'm sharing my own mental health advice for what's worked for me to get me out of these situations. And otherwise, you can find me on all the social media with the handles that I've given here. So that is my talk for today. I hope you guys found that interesting, and take good care of yourselves. You're going to get through this. Things are going to get better. And if language learning is your biggest stress right now, then even if you're not doing it as much as you wish you could right now, you will get there. So until the next time, everybody, happy language learning.